Jason here from @scoon.art, and welcome back to another Indie Comics Corner. So we're back with more making our comic here. Last time we talked about, writing an outline, translating it to a script with thumbnails, and while I'm not quite done with my thumbnails and script, I do have reason to move on to the big paper. Next month is HeroesCon in Charlotte, North Carolina. I plan on attending it, not as a tabler, but just as somebody going to the event. I'm going to enjoy the day. I have some friends that are going to be tabling there. It'll be good to see them. And I'd also like to basically have like a little zine that I can be walking around and handing out to not only my friends, but other creators that I'm familiar with who might not know me. Zines are a great way to get your work in people's hands. So that's what I'll be doing. Right now I'm in the middle of page 1 and 2 on the big paper. Yeah, let's come on over to the art table here so we can get a closer look, and we can maybe work on filling out the last panel here together. So yeah. All right, here we are at the drawing table. So as I said before, last video we took a look at writing an outline. I have a 3-page outline I wrote here, and I'll link the video so you guys can take a look if you haven't seen. Breaking it up into script and thumbnail, figuring out our pacing and our compositions, and basically how not just our page composition, but our compositions within the panels. We'll go ahead and do a quick compare and contrast here. Page 1 of the comic. I still haven't finished drawing page 1 of the comic. I don't like how this is going up here, so I plan on gessoing that out, and I got to work out what I'm going to do with the lettering there in my sketchbook. But otherwise, aside from that, this page is done. I got to add in the stars on the kimono there and on here as well. But yeah, a couple of things in this page is done. But, you can see. I mean, it's kind of a one-to-one copy, a little bit more refined, a little bit less sketchy. But I stuck with the page layout that we figured out, and I stuck with the compositions, and basically what you want to do is you just want to take your time drawing it. Draw it in pencil first, get a good pencil drawing that you like, and then, go in with ink and make it more better. Really flesh it out. But, we got Country Cat waking up. We have him going out and getting some coffee. Slosh, slosh, smells like fish, pouring the coffee, sipping the coffee, and looking outside to see it's a beautiful day, sipping the rest of his coffee, putting on his overalls, and putting on his hat. My daughter really likes this panel. She says it's very cute. So I figure if I'm pleasing a 7-year-old with the drawings, and she doesn't seem like I feel like she'd tell me if it was bad. I'll just say that. And then we got page 2 here I'm currently working on. So I've had a little bit of an adventure with page 2. I originally drew this one, and I didn't like it. This looked good. This looked okay. I'm not too happy with the grass there, and I messed up the roof, and this looks pretty good, but I ended up putting the spider webs in with gesso, and it doesn't look good, and I made a mistake here and gessoed a bunch of stuff, overhatched this. I don't think I framed this right. I'd like to get the spider's entire body into this frame, and if I can, kind of repeat this composition here, like have it almost an exact copy with the exact scale, maybe zoomed in a little bit, hand moved out of the way like this so you get the hand reaction. But yeah, I wasn't too pleased with this when I was done. So, most people would advise against it, but I just went ahead and drew it again, because if I took this to print, or if I went to a portfolio review and I showed this to somebody, I would not feel good about it, and I feel like if you're going to do something that's going to go to print, or it's going to be reviewed in some way, you're putting yourself out there, and if you don't 100% stand by this is the best you can do, then I don't think that, for me, it's not something I would put out there. So that's why I'm redrawing this page. And so far, I'm liking this a lot better. We can do a little compare and contrast here if you like. You know, I got a little bit more refined with the grass here. I do like the flowingness of this. But something about this feels a little bit more lively. It's got a lot more depth, I think, too. Country Cat seems to be a little bit more in focus, too. Yeah, this has a lot more depth, and I believe the perspective a lot more. It also would work really well in black and white and with colors on top. So I got to keep these things in mind. This is more or less the same. I did leave some negative space for the spider web, and I didn't overthink the perspective of the roof, and just kind of had it fill out the rest of the panel. And then I'm really liking my my grass it's messy, but it's not too messy. You can tell what it is. You put flowers here and there. I also like this sunflower here. I'm liking this a lot more. This is a lot clearer. The hatching is much better. It's neater. I mean, I know I was doing this a little bit fast, so, you know, shame on me. I knew it when I was doing it, but I still pushed it out of my mind and pushed ahead, which, not a bad thing to do. It's always good to push ahead, but, you know, if you reach the end and you feel like you got to do it again, I personally think I would do it again, which is why I'm doing it again. The gas, this looks so much better than this. The letters are clear. You know, you don't have them going over other letters. It's keeping up with the like it's on the plane of the movement of the gas can. This is just simply so much better. I put way less hatching on it and just simply tried to be like, all right, we're just going to go in one direction. And then with this is the most I did for like a gradient, is just getting the lines closer together, adding some like that kind of stop about halfway up and just kind of, you know, eyeballing it. And I think I got a pretty good gradient on that. That gives this panel some depth without overdoing it, you know? So yeah, there's that. So without further ado, let's get to drawing. So one of the things that, like, I've been drawing just a lot in pen for so long. It's my favorite medium. The fountain pen is my favorite tool to draw with. I have two fountain pens I really, really like. The first one I ever got was this one here, the Pilot Prera. And I love it because it's so lightweight, especially when you put the pen cap like this. The counterbalance is like perfect. But I've been using this one here, the Twisby, a lot. The reason I like this is it doesn't have like an ink cartridge. It just has a container that you spin this and you fill it up with ink, and it holds a ton of ink, and it writes, I mean, as good as any other fountain pen I've used, which is mostly just the Pilot Prera. But yeah, so there's that. But anyway, I've been drawing almost exclusively in pen for quite a while. That I get lazy with my pencils, and I think one of the reasons I didn't do so good on that other page is because of that. I got lazy with my pencils, wanted to get the pen real quick, and then just didn't provide myself enough information to get clean pen drawings, you know? Like, it's fun to go directly in with pen, especially in the sketchbook, and I would like to eventually just get so good at drawing that, like, I don't even pencil anymore. I just, like, kind of Kim Jong-gi style, you know, just going in. But I think that's something that's, you either got it or you don't, and I don't know that I do. But I'd like to aspire to it, you know. And then we gotta get the hand here. So we're just breaking up the composition here. Light shapes. I'm using just like a Ticonderoga number 2 HB soft pencil. I like the HB. You know, it's not too dark. I find anything in a B tends to be a little bit too dark, especially on watercolor paper. It gets harder to erase. You know, so stick to something light. You don't got to press down super hard, especially when you're just kind of sketching in the shapes. Hey, buddy. How you doing, Gizmo? I hear you. You can stay, but you got to chill out. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying. The cat's wants attention. But anyway, yeah, nice. You know, hold it up high. You don't want to press down too hard. You know, obviously move your wrist, but you see how I'm kind of moving it like almost at the forearm. You know, I'm keeping my wrist a little stiff sometimes. Um, you know, it's drawing when you learn drawing, it's supposed to be like a full body movement. They have you stand up, you're drawing from the shoulder with charcoal. Um, Especially when you get in the figure drawing, you know, and you're doing like gestures and stuff, like there's a real connection between like obviously, you know, what you're seeing and what you're drawing, but there's like a metaphysical connection between you and the person based on like, you know, again, drawing being like a full body motion. You're drawing from the shoulder, but you're also trying to capture the movement in the model's body. Even if they're standing still, they're not necessarily moving. There is a movement throughout a pose. You know, if you were to like try to draw a single line that goes, you know, just look at a pose and you could see what I mean. It's or any gesture drawing, you could start to see, you know, there's a movement even in stillness. I don't know. I find it to be incredibly eye opening. I love figure drawing, but it is one of those things that sounds kind of silly now that you say it out loud, Jay. But yeah, figure drawing's great. You always want it, but the point is even in a still drawing, you're still wanting to look for like a movement, you know, in your figures and all your because it gives it, you know, makes your drawings dynamic. So you might have to move that back a little bit, possibly make the hand bigger. So because we want the spider to be more of the focus than anything else. Yeah, I think I've got a scale problem is what it is. So originally I had something drawn here before. Obviously I don't pencil and ink like this normally. Normally I go in and see, I erased the whole thing. Normally I go in and pencil the whole page and then we'll ink. But as I was inking, I was getting to this panel. I just wasn't liking the composition. Too different. Too zoomed in. The scale was all weird. So I'm going to try my best to like copy exactly what I drew in the panel before here, but also fit the spider in for scale. And the spider scale might change a little bit from like panel to panel. I mean, like, you know, we're in a cartoon here. It doesn't have to be hard physics that we're adhering to or hard reality that we're adhering to here. But, you know, for something like this, you want him to kind of believe that he leaped out of there, you know? Let me get that. Yeah, because you know what? I like this face. Let's redo this cowboy hat here. And I put incarnation up here. What? Incarnation? So now let's get this drawn in. We can get some of this stuff solidified. If we need to change it, we can always stop with inks and go back to pencils. We're not married to the material we're currently using. You can always go back. And in fact, it's encouraged to go back sometimes. one side of his cowboy hat bent. Put some bullet holes in it. I did like that little detail. It's always good to get a nice, as smooth as you can line. If you got to interrupt it, that's fine. You want a good follow through. You don't want to be like pulling it every inch or so, you know, or every couple of every quarter inch or so, you know. Just want to get a nice flowing line. All right, so let's get that written in. Let's get our lettering in. Make sure I don't smear anything too. So don't do what I just did. Don't draw and then immediately put your hand in where you just drew, you know. But you want to take your time. You know, if you start to rush, which is what I did when I did the page before, I think you're going to run into trouble like I did. So just take your time. What in tarnation? And then let's get our word bowl drawn so we know how much space to allocate for it. Don't be afraid to turn your paper. So we know for a fact that the body, let's not put it in with pen just yet. Let's clean this up a little bit. So we know the body is going to be in front of the legs here. And it's going to come down behind the legs there. It doesn't even have to be that big. I kind of like that spider from Fievel Goes West. I don't know if you can tell by the cowboy spider, but I also like how they draw his like little furry feet. I'm gonna kind of lift that aesthetic a little bit. This leg like kind of grabbing onto the gas tank right there, going behind this one. We just kind of want like a tangle of legs here, but we don't want to get too lost in it, you know. Yeah, I like this. This reads as a spider, and it's not overly complicated. Once we get the pencils erased, you know, especially, I think it'll work even better, and I'll get the contrast put in. Yeah, I'm liking this a lot more. Perfect. Oh, I love it. It's exactly what I want. Oh, shoot. I'm coloring the wrong one in. All right. Already messing it up. That's okay. It's a little one. It's a little mistake. No, maybe we can just do this. We'll just do this, and it'll be all right. Nobody will know. Unless they watch this video. So if you're reading this in the future and you found this video, just know that that was a mistake. And if you saw these two little vents from the lawnmower here, you're like, hey, wait a second, these are two different sizes. What a careless artist. He must have made a mistake. Well, you would be correct, and you should be making comics because you have got an eye for good art. Only teasing. Alright, let's get some of the value worked in here so you can see how this goes. So yeah, if you keep your lines separated enough, you got a little bit more room to darken things and, you know, have a little bit more fun with it later on. If you kind of commit to something too early, then sorry, brother, you're out of luck. Unless you want to go in with a bunch of gesso, which, I don't know about you, it makes me want to start over if I do it too much. But notice how we get a little closer together as we get towards the end here. It's not perfect, but that's okay. That's one of the charms of the fountain pen, I think. And inking this way. I think, at least. I mean, I don't know. What do I know? But I like art that looks like this. It's one of the reasons I was looking at Crumb's work. I mean, I love Crumb's work to begin with, but, you know, I don't want to directly lift his style, but I think there are things about the medium that you choose, you know, whether you're inking with a brush or a nib or a fountain pen or a parallel pen or a rapidograph, whatever your weapon of choice is, you know, there's going to be, that's going to inform your style almost as much as like the person using it, you know, because there's an aesthetic to some of these mediums that, like, you know, you can't really, I mean, you know, I guess they make digital brushes and stuff, but I don't know. I still think that you can't really replicate it. Even if it looks just like it, it doesn't draw the same, you know? And again, that's where the personal style comes through. It's how a particular artist handles a medium, you know? Like somebody might really prefer inking with a brush. Some people might prefer inking with nib and brush. Some people might just like nib. I'm just doing one here just solely with fountain pen. Even these bigger black areas here, I'm just filling them in with fountain pen, you know? You know, it's all about an artist's preference, their weapon of choice. That's part of the creative process, I think. And I think when you draw digitally, you're only doing plastic on glass or, you know, whatever the heck the stylus is made out of. I think it's just plastic, but correct me if I'm wrong. So you're not really getting a sense of, like, you know, feel, which I think is as important as, like, you know, whatever conscious decisions are being made in the design process. You know what I'm saying? It's not something you can fake. And, you know, I might not be able to look at something and tell whether it was inked digitally or in real life, but to be able to see some of these inked pages in real life versus on the printed page, I think is something you lose when you ink digitally, you know? There's something about not even just the process, but there's a learning aspect to it. The digital stuff just kind of black boxes everything, I think. But when you see somebody's, you know, pages that, like, have gesso on them, or you can see, like, wow, they really do draw that clean. Like, for example, I saw last year's HeroesCon, Matthew Allison was there. Kankor. I don't know if you guys read his comics, but they're incredible, and I think he's one of the best inkers out there. His black lines, and his just everything about how he inks is so clean. I think he only uses microns, which is crazy to me. Like I don't like microns at all. But again, it's the artist, the materials they choose to use, the weapon of choice. And while there's lots of artists that use microns, not everybody's drawing like Matthew Allison. But when I saw his work in real life last year, it's like, no, he really does draw that clean. I was able to inspect it up close. He let me page through his portfolio he had out on his table, and I could lean in and put my eyes up almost. I'm not going to put my face on the page or whatever, but almost you can get as close as you want. He's a very kind man. And you can ask him any questions you want. And, I asked him like, man, what's your like penciling process for your, because I don't even see erase marks. Are you light boxing? He's like, nah, I'll do light penciling, but most of the drawings done in the inking phase. It's just remarkable to me. So yeah, it's like you see something like that, and you can kind of see like the guts of it a little bit. It's a feel. There's a tactileness to art being done on paper in the physical universe. I think this is where you're getting into preference here, but I think surrendering that to a realm that doesn't exist, it's you know what I'm saying? There's something about that just seems I don't know. Like if they can just grab your brushes because the licensing expires, like I don't know. Why are you going to give up that control if you're an artist? So that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty... Yeah, I'm liking this a lot better than what I had. Let's compare. Actually, let's see. Let's see how much better this... Look at that. It's a lot more dynamic, even if the legs don't make 100% sense. It looks like a spider. I like it. And I think I want to do that all hatched up, but I don't know. Hey, buddy. Maybe I'll leave it for now and I'll think on it. Because again, I can start another page and come back to it. I'm not... The whole thing, I think, is in flux. And, I've never worked with an editor. But I'd imagine this would be one of those things like, well, I'll turn it in, see what they think. If they feel like I need to hatch the spider's body in or what their thoughts on it, then I'll discuss it with them and we'll make a decision together. Because, the creative process, it's like making comics is great because you can do it all by yourself and be an auteur. But it's always nice to have input from somebody else. That's why it's good to have make friends in your art community, go to critiques, It's good to kind of get outside of your little tunnel vision sometimes as an artist, because one of the tendencies I think artists have is they think they know better when it comes to their work. And most of the time you do, because your work is probably personal, I think. If no matter what it is, I think there's something personal about putting your mark on paper like this, But it's good to make yourself vulnerable like that to people who do a similar thing to you already, rather than just immediately being like, all right, let's put it out for exhibit, and then there might be things you didn't think about, or you thought you communicated something particularly well, but maybe actually you didn't. But you got to have these kind of tests if you want to. That's why I think it's good to just kind of get your work out there, and even if you don't have a critique, I'm not saying you have to undergo any sort of critique to put your work out there, but there's always a self-critique involved. When you show something to somebody, you're self-conscious of it. what you don't want them to look at or what you do want them to look at or stuff. All right, so that's pretty much that. That's the panel we ended up with there. What do you think? You know, we got the thumbnail. We got the failed first attempt. And the redo. Hopefully that's coming through there. But, yeah. I'm very happy with it. We got a much more dynamic looking panel. I think the overall page looks very good. I love it from afar. I think it reads really well up close. And I'm ready to move on to page 3. We can go ahead and say page 2 is officially complete. Got to move on to page 3. Got to fix up page 1. And hopefully by HeroesCon, I'd like to have 6 pages done so that way I can put together a sufficient enough digest zine that I can print right off of my laser printer and hand out to anybody who's receptive to, you know, reading my work, which usually at a big comic convention such as Heroes, a lot of those guys around and gals. But hope to see you there, and if not, I'll see you here next time. Take care.